Hey everyone, and welcome back to Exposed, Scandalous, Files of the Elite. I am your host, Jim Chapman, and we are back with this continuation of the Murdaugh series. And the last time that I left you, Alex Murdaugh had been sentenced to life in prison for the murders of his son Paul and his wife Maggie Murdaugh. So, as you would expect, the media storm continued after this verdict, and many of the jurors came out in the media, and they had a lot to say, but none more than juror number 785, Myra Crosby, also known as the Egg Juror. Now, why was she called the Egg Juror? Well, she was the juror removed in the middle of closing arguments. And if you'll remember, it was the judge who asked her just prior to removing her if she had anything she needed to grab from the back of that courtroom before she left. And she said, "Yeah, I do, a dozen eggs." And it got quite the laugh. And the judge kind of picked on her a little bit for that. He had never had a juror forget a dozen eggs in the back of the deliberation room, so thus the nickname, the Egg Juror. Now, the concern more than anything else was the fact that sources who were familiar with the deliberations indicated that Murdaugh's trial would have likely ended in a hung jury had she stayed on that jury. And even Myra came out later on and stated she would not have found Alex Murdaugh guilty of murder. Now, this is a huge problem. And so the defense, they start diving into why this juror was dismissed. And one thing they do specifically is they talk to juror number 785. And what they find out, whether you think Alex Murdaugh is guilty or innocent, is very concerning. And it relates to the clerk of court for Colleton County, a lady by the name of Becky Hill. So a little more about Becky Hill. She was born in Colleton County. She had been a middle school teacher and she held administrative roles in law offices before working as a court reporter in the Colleton County Court for 14 years. In 2020, she ran and won the election for clerk of court for Colleton County at the age of 52, and she had a history with the Murdaugh family. As a matter of fact, in 2008, as a court reporter, she met both Alex and his father, Randolph Murdaugh, for the first time. Randolph, of course, at this time was the 14th Circuit Court solicitor. And Becky Hill would say of the Murdaughs that they had a wonderful charm that seemed to have been passed down from generation to generation. However, Hill would later say in her book that she knew in her heart that Murdaugh was guilty of the murders of his wife and son even before the end of the trial. She said, quote, "While the jurors viewed the Moselle property, she could hear and see that Alex's version of the events that transpired just were impossible." So back to that egg jar, and specifically her removal. Now, the reasoning behind this was that Becky Hill said she saw a Facebook post in a local Facebook group claiming what the Murdaugh verdict was going to be. So Becky Hill sees this post and she reports it to Judge Clifton Newman. Now, when they went back to try to find it, it had been deleted. But regardless, Judge Clifton Newman dismisses Becky Hill from the jury. But it was what was found out later, after the verdict, as it relates to Becky Hill, the clerk of court, that was most disturbing. On September 5th of 2023, which is 3 months after the verdict in the Murdaugh case, a bombshell motion gets filed by Murdaugh's attorneys, and it accused Becky Hill of jury tampering. And this motion and the statement of facts within it were shocking. Now, I have that motion for a new trial that was submitted, and here's how it reads. And I'll start with the statement of facts. It says, Mr. Murdaugh was indicted for the murder of his wife Maggie and son Paul on July 14th of 2022. His murder trial began on July 23rd of 2023. The presiding judge was the Honorable Clifton Newman. The trial ran for 6 weeks and ended with convictions on the evening of March 2nd of 2023. Sentencing followed on March 3rd of 2023. The state rested its case in chief, and the defense began its case on Friday, February 17th of 2023. Court was not held on February 20th, which is President's Day. After returning from the holiday, Miss Hill began to enter the jury rooms often. As the defense began its case, Miss Hill told jurors, "Y'all are going to hear things that will throw you all off. Don't let this distract or mislead you." Additionally, Miss Hill and juror number 826, who was the foreperson, on multiple occasions went into another room to have private conversations lasting 5 to 10 minutes. And y'all, that is really off the rules. You can't do that. Sometimes they would go in the jury room's single occupancy bathroom together. Four-person juror number 826 never said anything about the content of those conversations to other jurors. Ms. Hill even instructed jurors that they could not ask a four-person about the conversations. 2 days later, on Thursday, February 23rd, and continuing through the next day, Mr. Murdaugh testified in his own defense. Before he began his testimony, Ms. Hill told jurors not to be fooled by the evidence Mr. Murdaugh's attorneys presented, which at least one juror understood to mean that Mr. Murdaugh would lie when he testified. Ms. Hill also instructed the jury to watch him closely and look at his actions, to look at his movements, which at least one juror understood to mean Mr. Murdaugh was guilty. Immediately after Mr. Murdaugh testified, the foreperson told the jury that Mr. Murdaugh was crying on cue. She also criticized the former foreperson for handing Mr. Murdaugh a box of tissues when he was crying on the stand, because that is what the defense wants us to do. The next court day after Mr. Murdaugh's testimony, Monday, February 27th, Ms. Hill told Judge Newman about a Facebook posting she purportedly saw on the evening of Friday, February 24th, which was the day Mr. Murdaugh's testimony concluded. While looking at the Facebook page called Walterboro Word of Mouth, the post purportedly by juror number 785's ex-husband Tim Stone allegedly stated his ex-wife was saying that she was on the jury and saying stuff about how her verdict was going to be. Judge Newman asked her to produce a copy of the posting, but she could not produce a copy. According to Ms. Hill, a subordinate employee in the clerk's office, Lori Weiss, discovered the post that was taken down and replaced with an apology post. The apology post said, "Folks, I posted an ugly post yesterday to which I've deleted, and I kinda in a roundabout way directed it towards a certain person, and I would like to apologize to everyone who read it. That was ugly for me to do, and yes, I let Satan control me, and I broke down and started drinking, and when I was drunk I made the post, and I'm sorry." And it goes on to say the apology post states the initial post was already deleted on February 16th, so it would have been impossible for Ms. Hill to see the original post on February 24th. Mr. Stone, juror number 785's ex-husband, avers in a sworn statement that he made no such post. Mr. Murdaugh has obtained an authentic download of the entirety of Mr. Stone's Facebook activity from January 23rd, 2023 to March 2nd of 2023, which confirms he did not post the apology, and that he in fact never posted anything to the Walterboro Word of Mouth Facebook page during the trial. The person who made the apology post is an unrelated person also named Tim Stone, whose Facebook profile picture is not of juror number 785's ex-husband. So if you ain't figured it out yet, the defense's contention here, what they're trying to prove, is that that post never happened. They couldn't produce the post. It was made up, and it was made up by Becky Hill to get this person who did not think Alex Murdaugh was guilty off that jury. It goes on. It says on February 28th, Ms. Hill questioned juror number 785 about the fictitious post, and that's the defense calling it fictitious, on Walterboro Word of Mouth alone in her office in the courthouse. She told Juror number 785 that someone had emailed her stating her ex-husband, Tim Stone, posted on the Facebook page that juror number 785 had been drinking with her ex-husband and while drunk expressed opinions on the guilt or innocence of Mr. Murdaugh. Juror number 785 told Miss Hill that never happened and that she had not seen her ex-husband in 10 years. Juror number 785 asked to see the post, but Miss Hill would not show it to her. Miss Hill directly asked juror number 785 whether she was inclined to vote guilty or not guilty, and juror number 785 said she had not made up her mind. Later that day, Miss Hill told juror number 785 that SLED and the Colleton County Sheriff's Office personnel went to Mr. Stone's house and he confirmed that he made the post. This is a fabrication by Miss Hill. Miss Hill told juror number 785 that she would somehow reinstate a restraining order that juror number 785 previously had against her ex-husband, which is something Miss Hill did not have the authority to do. Still, later that day, Newman examined juror number 785 regarding both the non-existent Facebook post and the tenant/co-worker email. Juror number 785 described her interactions with Miss Hill regarding that Facebook post. She denied making any inappropriate comments about the case to third parties and stated she wanted to hear closing arguments before forming an opinion on Murdaugh's guilt or innocence. After she was dismissed, Judge Newman said, quote, "Oh boy, I'm not too pleased about the clerk interrogating a juror as opposed to coming to me and bringing it to me. He was right to be concerned." The next day, on March 1st of 2023, the jury visited Moselle, the site of the murders. During that visit, four-person 826 and Miss Hill walked off to have yet another private conversation. In her book, Miss Hill more vaguely hints at communicating her opinion on Mr. Murdaugh's guilt to the jury during the visit to the Moselle property. While the jurors viewed the Moselle property, we all could hear and see Alex's story was impossible, which I told y'all about. That day, Judge Newman also held an in-camera conference regarding whether the tenant co-worker email in which he decided to revisit that Facebook post with Miss Hill. The court, quote, "Okay, well, let me see what Becky is talking about. I want to revisit that Facebook post you mentioned the other day." Miss Hill, right. The court, that's Becky Hill, the clerk of court. Can you tell us about that Facebook post? Miss Hill, yes, I think it was Friday evening. I went on Facebook and got on Walter Burr word of mouth and saw where someone had said that, well, it was the ex-husband of a juror, and he said he noticed his ex-wife was saying that she was on the jury and saying stuff about how the verdict was going to be and that he was the ex-husband, but she was known for talking way too much. And then I just kept on scrolling because that was enough for me. I've gotten enough. The court, and how did you determine who he was talking about? Miss Hill, when I heard there was an email on Monday, I figured the two went together if it were true. The court, well, she's confirmed she has an ex-husband who she has 3 restraining orders against. So, Miss Hill, right. So then we looked on Monday after you told me to try to go back and look for it and we couldn't find it. But then we found out his name and we found the post and printed out where he said that he had put something up, but that he had deleted it at the time. The court, he said he got drunk afterwards. Mr. Metters, something about the devil. Mr. Harpootlian, didn't he say it was Satan? Miss Hill, Satan was in it. Yes. In all of the details. Yes. The court, all right. Miss Hill, made me do it. The court, okay, I just want to have that on the record. You're reading a Facebook post by the ex-husband who said it. Of course, you haven't talked with him, so you don't know where he got his information from. Miss Hill, I don't. I can find it though. And then it goes on to say, but Miss Hill never saw any Facebook post. She made it up. Further, she knew the apology post was not posted by juror number 785's ex-husband. 785 showed Miss Hill a picture of her ex-husband, which is not the Facebook profile picture of the other Mr. Stone in his post about Satan. The next day, March 2nd of 2023, the day of the verdict, juror number 785 received a call from her ex-husband that she did not answer. The call upset her because Miss Hill's lies had led her to believe he was posting on Facebook about her and might be stalking her. Juror 785 asked to speak with Miss Hill. She told Miss Hill she was scared. Miss Hill told her that the Murdaughs probably got to him, meaning her ex-husband. Miss Hill once again asked her opinion regarding Mr. Murdaugh's guilt. Juror number 785 told her that Creighton Waters' closing was good, but that she still had questions. Miss Hill asked what questions, and 785 replied that she was concerned that no murder weapon was found. Miss Hill then asked, well, what makes you think he's guilty? 785 said, Paul's video at the dog kennels. Miss Hill then told 785 that everything Mr. Murdaugh has said had been lies and that she should forget about the guns. They will never be seen again. Miss Hill then asked 785 about the views of the rest of the jury, telling her that if the foreperson would just go in and ask for a raise of hands, this would all be over and done with, and everyone needs to be on the same page. Juror number 785 went to the jury room and 10 minutes later was excused from the jury. In open court, immediately after her excusal, 785 asked Judge Newman if he had spoken with the clerk of court, referring to the conversation earlier that morning with Miss Hill. Judge Newman responded, I have not spoken with her today, and that this is totally independent of any conversation regarding her ex-husband, apparently misunderstanding her question to refer to the issue of the Facebook post. When the jury began deliberations that evening, Miss Hill told them that this shouldn't take as long, and that if they deliberated past 11 p.m., they would be taken directly to a hotel, even though none were prepared to stay overnight. Additionally, smokers on the jury asked to be allowed to take smoke breaks, as they had previously been allowed to do during the 6-week trial. But Ms. Hill told them that they cannot smoke until deliberations were complete. Ms. Hill told jurors that after the trial they would be famous and predicted that the media would request interviews with them. Ms. Hill even handed out reporters' business cards to jurors during the trial. Juror number 578 took this to heart and made an appearance on Good Morning America the night of the verdict, which is why on this day the jury began deliberations and he wore a suit coat for the first time during the trial. After the verdict and immediately before sentencing, Ms. Hill pressured the jury to speak to a group of reporters from network news shows. She traveled with jurors to New York City, where they appeared on the Today Show. She got a book deal. Her book, quote, Behind the Doors of Justice, was released on August 1st of 2023. A last point about Ms. Hill's efforts to promote her book shows her dishonest efforts to profit from the trial. And it continued well after the verdict. A film crew negotiated a contract with Colleton County Sheriff's Department to use courthouse bailiffs to provide security while they filmed a documentary at the Colleton County Courthouse when it was closed for Confederate Memorial Day on May 10th of 2023. The film crew had previously recorded an interview with Ms. Hill. On May 9th, Ms. Hill sent a memo to the film crew purporting to be an addendum to the contract. The memo read that she demanded that film crew pay Colleton County a fee of $1,000 per day for use of the courthouse facilities and made a nonsensical statement about not having authority outside of South Carolina that reflects a failure to understand the choice of law clause in the contract. Then she bizarrely added a handwritten demand, which said, also in the exchange for the use of the likeness of Rebecca Hill in an interview, a minimum 5-second video and audio clips will accompany the usage of the first reference. The book cover for the book, Behind the Doors of Justice, The Murdaugh Murders, will be shown, and audio will include Becky's introduction as the clerk of court for Colleton County and author of the book. So the film crew, they ignored her addendum as the contract had already been executed. But like her jury tampering during trial, it was an attempt to violate South Carolina law, which provides no public official, public member, or public employee may knowingly use his official office, membership, or employment to obtain an economic interest for himself. And they probably need to change that to himself or herself. So that is how that read. And then they got affidavits from the actual jurors. They wanted to know what the jurors had to say about this. And we'll start with the affidavit from juror number 630. And it reads, I was juror 630 in the state of South Carolina versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh trial. Toward the end of the trial, after President's Day break, but before Murdaugh testified, the clerk of court, Rebecca Hill, told the jury to not be fooled by the evidence, which I understood to mean that Murdaugh would lie when he testified. She also instructed the jury to watch him closely immediately before he testified and look into his actions and look at his movements, which I understood to mean that he was guilty. Immediately after he testified, the foreperson said Mr. Murdaugh was crying on cue. The foreperson criticized the former foreperson for handing Mr. Murdaugh a box of tissue, and I told y'all about all of this, so I won't continue on that, but signed affidavit from that juror. Then there's an affidavit of Holly Miller. Incidentally, Holly Miller is an attorney for the defense. And it says, on August 6th of 2023, Dick Harpootli and Jim Griffin and I met with juror number 741 at her home located, and it's redacted out. At the meeting on August 6th, she indicated she would sign an affidavit. However, we are unable to arrange with her a suitable time and place. During the meeting, she relayed the following information to us. During the trial, she witnessed the clerk of court, Becky Hill, come into the jury room, and Miss Hill and the foreperson then went into the bathroom, after which Miss Hill and the foreperson exited the bathroom, and Miss Hill told the juries they cannot ask the foreperson questions. Several times during the trial, Miss Hill told jurors that the media would want to interview jurors at the end of the trial, and during one of those conversations, she passed out business cards from the media to jurors. At the end of the trial, Miss Hill told, and it's redacted out, but she told one of the jurors no one from the media wanted to interview her. Right before the defense put up their case, Miss Hill told jurors, y'all are going to hear things that will throw you off. Don't let this distract you or mislead you. After Alex testified, 8 jurors indicated they did not believe his testimony. Juror number 544, known as Boston by many of the jurors, was very emotional during the trial. During the visit to Moselle, juror 826 walked the scene with another juror. The juror began walking with the clerk of court, Becky Hill. There were times when the jurors were not kept together, but were in 2 separate rooms. And there's a lot of redactions in this, but somebody noticed jurors were talking about the case before deliberations began. Neither she nor 785 joined in on the conversations about Alex. As the jury was deliberating, she believes Judge Newman came into the room she was in and told the jury that they would have to spend a night at a hotel if they did not have a vote by a certain time, but she did not recall the deadline. Juror 741, which was the first former juror to provide information that the clerk of court made statements to members of the jury about the evidence presented during the trial prior to jury deliberations. Miss Hill's conduct was corroborated by other jurors during subsequent interviews. And then it goes on and it shows some of the proof. It actually has a copy of the Facebook post in which there was an apology, but no one can put their hands on the original post, supposedly where this juror was saying that Alex Murdaugh was going to be found not guilty, etc. Now, keep this in mind. The defense believes this was all made up. And honestly, I am apt to believe, personally, that this was all made up. Doesn't mean Alex Murdaugh was innocent, but I think, just my opinion, I have no direct evidence, but I think that this was all made up by Becky Hill in order to get that person off the jury. And that's messed up, really messed up. So get this, they get an affidavit from Tim Stone, the ex-husband, who supposedly posted all this on behalf of that Egg Juror. It says, personally appeared before me, Tim Stone, who is being first duly sworn, deposes and states the following. I am the ex-husband of juror number 785. I did not post anything to the Facebook group Walter Burr Word of Mouth between January 23rd of 2023 and March 2nd of 2023. I did not post anything on this social media page or my own Facebook social media page about my ex-wife being a juror. Nor did I post what is attached at Exhibit A, which has been represented to me as an alleged post to the Walter Burr Word of Mouth Facebook page in a court exhibit in the trial, and that is the apology post. I do not have a Facebook page set up as Timothy Stone. My profile name is Tim Stone, and my Facebook page is, and he provides the link. I was never contacted by law enforcement, the Attorney General's office, the Clerk of Court Becky Hill, or anyone at Colleton County Clerk of Court's office about the post on that Facebook page concerning my ex-wife. I did not know my ex-wife was on the Murdaugh jury until I heard her voice on a recording when she was being excused as a juror and she was discussing something about eggs. And there you have it. Now, this is sworn fucking testimony from this guy. Becky Hill lied. There's sworn testimony. This guy has no reason to lie. He's not on the jury. He can't get in any trouble. He can post whatever the hell he wants. And he's saying it right there. Sworn testimony. He could go to jail if he was lying about that. He's not going to lie. Heck, him and his wife, they had restraining orders against each other. I'm apt to think he didn't even like her that much. He certainly would tell on her if it was something he did. But what about juror number 785? What does she say? What's her sworn affidavit? Well, I'm going to tell you. Here it is. I was juror number 785 in the case of the state of South Carolina versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, tried in Colleton County, South Carolina. During the presentation of the defense case after President's Day, but before Mr. Murdaugh testified in his own defense, Colleton County Clerk of Court Rebecca Hill told jurors to not be fooled by the evidence presented to the jury by Mr. Murdaugh's attorneys. In late February of 2023, Ms. Hill questioned me about a Facebook post. She summoned me to speak with her alone in her office. She told me someone emailed her about a post my ex-husband, Tim Stone, purportedly made, which purportedly stated that I made comments to him about the guilt or innocence of Mr. Murdaugh. She directly asked me whether I was inclined to vote guilty or not guilty. I told her I'd not made up my mind and that I wanted to hear all the evidence before deciding. Miss Hill said the post said that I had been drinking with my ex-husband and that while drunk with him, I expressed opinions on the guilt or innocence of Mr. Murdaugh. That never happened. And I told Miss Hill it never happened. I did not go drinking with my ex-husband. In fact, I have not seen my ex-husband in approximately 10 years. I asked to see the post, but Ms. Hill could not show it to me. I have never seen it, and to my knowledge, no one has. Later that day, Ms. Hill told me that SLED and the Colleton County Sheriff's Office personnel went to my ex-husband's house, and he purportedly confirmed that he made the post. She told me she would reinstate a restraining order I had previously had against my ex-husband. I did not know about the apology post referencing Satan until Miss Hill's book was published. I have since reviewed that post and can definitely state the post is not by my ex-husband. He does not go by Timothy. The profile picture is not him, and the phrasing of the post is not phrasing that he would use. It appears to be a post by another person who happens to have the same name. It does not appear to be a post by the Walter Burr Word of Mouth Facebook page. Now, before I go any further and continue to read this, y'all know how easy it is to make a fake Facebook profile. It happens all the time, especially in politics. You know, when people are running for local political seats, tons of people make fake Facebook profiles to troll essentially these candidates. So I can make one right now that said I'm this guy. It doesn't mean anything. When Miss Hill first asked me about the Facebook posting purportedly made by my ex-husband, I showed her a picture of my ex-husband. For that reason, I now believe she already knew the apology post referencing Satan was not posted by my ex-husband. On March 2nd of 2023, the day of the verdict, I received a call from my ex-husband, Tim Stone, as I was getting on the bus to travel with the rest of the jurors to the courthouse. I did not answer. The phone call upset me greatly, and I asked to speak with the clerk of court, which I did by telephone using bailiff Mr. Bill's phone. I told her I was scared. She said that the Murdaughs probably got to him. Miss Hill then asked me questions about my opinion regarding Mr. Murdaugh's guilt. She asked if I was leaning one way or the other. I told her that Creighton Waters' closing was good, but I still had questions. She asked me what kind of questions, and I replied questions about the guns. She asked me what would make me think he is innocent. I stated that no murder weapon was found. She then asked, well, what makes you think he's guilty? I said Paul's video at the dog kennels. She then stated that everything Mr. Murdaugh has said was lies and that I should forget about the guns and they will never be seen again. Miss Hill then asked about the views of the rest of the jury. She told me if the foreperson would just go in and ask for a raise of hands, this would be over and done with. She said everyone needs to be on the same page. She then again said she would reinstate a restraining order I previously had against my ex-husband and that she would call Judge Newman about the restraining order. I then went into the jury room. Approximately 10 minutes later, I was excused from the jury. During the proceedings, I asked Judge Newman if he had spoken with the clerk of court, and he only said that this is not because of your ex-husband. 2 weeks later, I did answer a call from my ex-husband. I angrily confronted him about the post he purportedly made because I knew I had not made the comments he claimed I made. He emphatically denied ever making any such Facebook posts and genuinely seemed to not know what I was talking about. On one day during my jury service, approximately 1 or 2 weeks before the verdict, jury 684 and juror 826 were in the single toilet unisex bathroom together for an extended period. They were known to do so frequently to discuss the case. Juror 729 referred to it as, quote, A and D time. It continues on. In the van going to the courthouse, Juror 864 said Special Agent David Owen lied on the stand, but that nothing would happen to him. When we visited the Moselle crime scene, Miss Hill and Juror number 826 walked off together, avoiding other jurors in order to have a private conversation. I own rental property, which is leased to two tenants, Deborah Webb and Clifford Dandridge. On Saturday, February 18th of 2023, I delivered a refrigerator to the property. I was removed from the jury on the day of the verdict because a co-worker of Miss Webb purportedly said I expressed an opinion on Miss Murdaugh's guilt or innocence while delivering the refrigerator. Miss Webb then worked for Domino's Pizza in Walterboro, so the co-worker would be some employee of Domino's Pizza. I do not know whether Miss Webb actually made such statement at Domino's Pizza or whether a co-worker actually heard any such statement. After I was dismissed from the jury, I spoke with Miss Webb and Mr. Dandridge, who both vehemently stated to me and my husband that the affidavits in the prosecution drafted for their signature was not what they said to him. They told me Sled showed up at their home after they were asleep, removed them from the home, put them in separate cars, and questioned them. Mr. Dandridge said that he told them I did not say anything about Mr. Murdaugh's guilt or innocence. Sled returned 30 minutes later, again woke them from their beds to serve subpoenas on them to appear in court the next day. They arrived at the courthouse at 9 a.m. the next day, were held for 9 hours until 6 p.m. when SLED officers or a prosecutor finally presented typed affidavits to them, saying they were statements from the previous night that had been recorded by dash cams in the patrol cars. They said they signed the affidavits without reading them. As I previously testified, I've never discussed the merits of the Murdaugh case with Miss Webb, Mr. Dandridge, or any other person present, nor did I express an opinion of Mr. Murdaugh's guilt or innocence while delivering a refrigerator or during any other interaction with them during the trial. Pretty damning statement right there by the egg juror. So what did the egg juror say directly to Clifton Newman. I'm going to cover that transcript. The court, have you put anything on Facebook? 785. Not regarding the case. I put positive post on. I gave Miss Becky my full access to my Facebook page, and I put positive post on. I've done that for the past 3 years. The court, has anyone posted anything on Facebook about you? 785. I wasn't aware of it until Miss Becky told me today. The court, what did she tell you? 785. She asked me if I had an ex-husband, and I said, yeah. And she asked me if I had talked to him about the case or being on jury duty, and I said no. And I questioned her about why she was asking me that. I haven't seen my ex-husband since 2014. The court, does he live in the area? 785. He does now. He lives in Cottageville. The court, okay. 785. And I have 3 restraining orders against him. The court, so he's basically up to no good? 785. I wouldn't say that. I'd say a lot worse, but that's a nice way to put it. The court, okay. 785. Like I said, I have 3 restraining orders against him. I wouldn't have anything to do with him if I didn't have a child with him, but I haven't seen him since 2014 when we got a divorce. I have talked to him within the last year because I got a call at work that my son was in jail and needed a ride home. And I did call his father and ask him to go get him, which he did not do. But other than that, I have not seen him, talk to him, or anything else since 2014 other than getting restraining orders in Colleton County, one in Orangeburg County, and I have one in Berkeley County. The court, wow. 785. But Miss Becky said she had went to look for that post again and it had been deleted. And I don't know who she talked to or anything else, but she did apparently. The court, when did she tell you that? 785. It was after you let us go on that last break. I was very upset. She came down and talked to me and said that apparently, I don't know who talked to him, but said that he was drunk and he removed the post. The court, so has she discussed the case with any of the other jurors? Has the clerk discussed anything about the case with anyone on the jury? 785, not that I'm aware of. The court, okay, she was just discussing with juror. She pulls me aside, and when we went downstairs after the last break, I want to say it was after lunch, and when we came back, that's when she first told me about it. And then we went back into court. I was kind of screening the audience to make sure my ex wasn't in there. And she came downstairs after that break and told me that she had found out that he was drunk and made a drunk post, and I don't know what happened from there. I have no clue. The court, and you work at the 785. I work at a monkey farm. The court, monkey farm? What do you do there? 785. I work in the lab. For the lab, all I do is watch monkeys. You can't make that up. It's a testing facility where they try and come up with cures for things like AIDS, cancer, leukemia. The court, you're happy to be here away from the monkeys for a while? 785. Yeah, I miss my monkeys. Sorry, y'all. The court, and they are pretty smart, as everyone says. 785. They are very intelligent and they hurt and bleed and they have feelings just like you or I do. I mean, this is just funny to me because this is in the middle of court, right? The court. Okay, at this point in time, have you made up your mind as of guilt or innocence? 785. I haven't. I was trying to wait until closing arguments because those are usually pretty good. The court. You've been on the jury duty before? 785. I was, but it's kind of really sucked because they called us back and we were, anticipating. It was my first jury and they made up an agreement and we never even got to sit on the jury. The court. Okay. Any questions either for anyone to ask? Mr. Griffin. No, Your Honor. Mr. Waters. No, Your Honor. And so basically after that is when she was dismissed from that jury. So, y'all, that was the motion to suspend the trial. And I'm going to say a couple of things on that. First, I think Clifford Newman made probably his only mistake of the trial in his judgment here. This woman was telling the truth. She didn't mouth off, if you will, as we say it in the South, to anybody. Nobody. She hadn't talked to her husband since 2014. I also think it's pretty clear by this point that Rebecca Hill was lying. Major problem. You've got affidavits from several jurors showing Rebecca Hill tampering with this jury. This is major shit. I'm not going to get ahead of myself on what happened in all this, but I will tell you this. Now, that was September 5th of 2023 when that motion to suspend and appeal for a new trial was put out there. And Rebecca Hill goes under an unbelievably large microscope. We're going to pick up next week with what happened, not only with Rebecca Hill, but also what happened with Alex Murdaugh. Can he get out of jail based on this? Can he at least get a new trial based off of this? I think if any of us look at this and let's put out of our mind that Alex Murdaugh did this. Let's put all that out of our mind for a second. And let's just think, if you're the judge and all this shit was going on behind the scenes with your clerk of court, does it justify a new trial? That's what we're going to talk about going forward. We're going to talk about Rebecca Hill going forward, what happens to her, because a lot of things do. I want to thank all of you for listening, supporting, shouting us out on your social media, all the wonderful things that you do to make sure this show grows. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. We really need it. Keep pushing it out there. Keep telling people about what we do here on Exposed, Scandalous Files of the Elite. If you're a Patreon member, got a bonus episode headed your way tomorrow. So listen for that. And until next time, for Exposed, Scandalous Files of the Elite, I'm your host, Jim Chapman. Much love.